Best Irish music on irishradio.org with Jerry Byrne.
Irish Radio, I'm Jerry Burns. Since the onset of COVID and all the rest of it, I've been speaking to many of the great and the good involved in Irish music and entertainment and all of that. I've got a gentleman online who comes from a great pedigree in singing and in music. His mother was a true singing star on TV, radio, etc. And he went on then to carve out a career in entertainment as well in singing. I'm delighted to say hello to the one and only PJ Reilly. PJ, how are you?
Hello, Jerry. How are things?
Not bad at all. PJ, nice to catch up with you again. Listen, when you were growing up, you were sort of born and reared on music with your mum, Betty Reilly.
That's correct. Yeah, I started in my mother's little band when I was only 14, I think.
Right. She had a tremendous amount of success.
She had a long and varied career. I suppose it really started in New York, where she had done a little bit of singing in Ireland, and then we went to live in New York for a couple of years, and she was involved in singing over there, and whatever the biggest show was at the time, I think it might have been the Ed Sullivan Show, but I'm not sure. They held auditions. 6,000 girls, ladies, auditioned for a spot on the show. And my mother, and God rest her, and another girl were the only two picked. And to appear on the big television show, you know, it was a huge thing at the time.
Wow.
But unfortunately, I became ill with the humidity in New York, and we had to return home. So that sort of banjexed that, you know. But after that, then she had a band going in England when we lived in London and so on, and we came back to Ireland. Of course, I was too young. I wasn't involved in that. It was later then, as I said, when I was about 14, she set up her own little band called the Escorts, and I was the keyboard player in that, and that's how it began for me.
Right, excellent stuff. And then, of course, she had the huge success of the Tower of Sweet Rathlee.
That was truly amazing, and there's one person I'd like to give full credit to for a lot of that is the old man himself, Seamus Moore. We were with the Release Record label in Dublin at the time and brought out the Tower of Sweet Rathlee. And the pilots were selling and doing fairly well in Ireland. We had no idea that it had gone to number one in England. Neither were we told by the record company. And Seamus Moore wrote to us, with no phones in those days, and we didn't have one anyway. Seamus wrote to us and sent us 3 different magazines, the Irish Post newspaper and 2 more magazines. He was writing a column at the time for 2 of them, I think, himself, on Irish show business, to show us we were number one, and invited us over on a tour, which Seamus set up for us.
Right.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So she made it to number one, in the charts here in England, and that certainly that obviously provided you got more work and all the rest of it then.
Oh yes, of course. Now it was the Irish music charts in England. It wasn't, of course, the top of the pops now or anything like that.
Yes.
But nonetheless, it was fantastic. We had no idea, to go out on a stage in a big ballroom over there and introduced by the MC, as about the number one, and everybody cheering and clapping. Sure, we thought we were in the Beatles or something,
Absolutely.
I thank Seamus always for that. He gave us, the opportunity to go over there. It was lovely, 3 weeks. We didn't make any money, but we had a lot of fun.
Indeed. And but she also, she also appeared on back in the day on RTE television.
Yeah, I'm surprised you know that. Yeah.
Indeed, singing the
on the Dinjo. It was a show called Be My Guest. I remember the night well. I was only 10 years old, so that's 55 years ago, nearly.
Wow.
And there was only, believe it or not, there were only 3 televisions in our townland, and we had one of them in our house. And there was 35 people jammed into our kitchen. I remember it so well, and my father had to put 2 sods of turf on the range to get a place to sit down. Now, I wrote a song, like you may have heard it, Oh no, it's in the song, The Girl from Sweet Reilly.
Indeed.
There's a verse describing what was going on in Eastkey that night.
Indeed.
In Vincent Rafter, God rest him, Vincent Rafter's hall. And the television's all set up and all the people looking at her on the TV. Actually, it didn't happen exactly the way as I described it in the song. We had a little shop as well next door to the hall, and there was 3 televisions in the window of that shop and loudspeakers outside, and the people were all standing around on the street actually enjoying the experience of her being on Be My Guest. It was an incredible thing at the time, you know.
Indeed, it was a tremendous achievement, and in order to appear on a program like that back then was a huge event.
It was, but there were other things. There were other things that come to mind. She had a long and quite a good many years of before she set up the Escorts. She was doing a guest artist thing, you know, and she sung with all the top show bands of the day. She would appear for half an hour, 45 minutes in the middle of their show, you know, in the big dance hall. Yeah. And the most astonishing story that I recall from then, and she often spoke of it, and I remember it well because I was there in the house when it took place, you know. My mother, she loved, like any artist, I suppose, she loved to just see a big ad with her name in it in the newspaper and so on, and looked forward to it each week. And this particular week, we have a paper here called the Sligo Champion, and there was a big venue at the time, wonderful dance hall, the Silver Slipper in Strand Hill, and she was booked to appear there. Now, she was to sing with Butch Moore and the Capital Show Band, the late Butch Moore, wonderful guy. And it was the week that Butch came back from the Eurovision Song Contest, you see. Yes. And I recall my father came home with the newspaper, and my mother was standing up at the kitchen table reading it, and she started crying. And my father said, "What's wrong with you? Is someone dead?" "No," she said, look at this, Willie," she said. And there was a big ad. I can't believe it. The guy that owned the Silver Slipper, you see, was a big fan of my mother, and he was a bit of a comedian as well, you see. And he had a half page or more in the Sligo Champion. And on the top was, whichever night it was, and then appearing Betty Reilly in letters 3 inches high. And underneath it, plus Butch Moore at the Capital Show Band.
Right.
And this was the week that Butch came back from the Eurovision. And she was in tears. She said, "Oh, they won't back me properly now. They'll be so annoyed," and blah, blah, blah. And as it turned out, she said every member of the band, including Butch, God rest him, they were total gentlemen. She said they saw the funny side of it. They backed her to the finest degree and had great time for her. And it was the best night of her life that I recall her ever talking about.
Oh, absolutely fantastic stuff. It really was. It really was a tremendous career that she had. And then you went on. I mean, you were playing with her in the band, and then you went out you were performing yourself for many years.
Yeah. What I was only, just doing the circuit, making a bob here and there, and nothing exciting. I went over. I did a couple of so-called, we'll call them tours of England myself, and I did grand, I did very well in England, but on a very small level, as a one-man band, nothing spectacular, but I did have a good time, and I was well received, and I appreciate all the people that came to hear me. I had a couple of great venues. I wasn't there long. I went over for 3 weeks, mind you, and I stayed 5 months, so I was doing all right,
Right, indeed. Now you also recorded an album, and you've recorded a song with Margot as well.
Well, that's right. That's the sequel to the Tower of Sweet Reilly, and again, there's a story behind every song, I suppose. And I was sitting in my taxi. I've been working as a taxi driver for a good many years now. When I was sitting in the taxi outside the cathedral in Ballinair one night, waiting on an old lady to come out, customer of mine to bring her home, and it suddenly dawned on me that in fact it was the 16th of January, which was the anniversary of her death. And from no place, the phrase came into my head, "The Girl from Sweet Reilly." So I grabbed my old receipt book out of the glove compartment and a biro, and on my with the light of the interior light in the taxi. In one go, about 5 or 6 minutes, I just wrote out The Girl from Sweet Reilly. And my wife Barbara reckons my mother wrote the song for me, because it flowed out of the pen and it never changed a bit. We never changed a word of it. So now, you see, going back to Margot met my mother in the top hat in Ealing one night many years ago, the time that the Tower Sweet Reilly was doing well. And Margot asked her for the words, I think that's how it happened. I could be open to contradiction on that. But anyways, Margot recorded the Tower of Sweet Reilly also, and people can find that if they'd like to listen to Margot's version. You can find it on the internet there. So when I wrote The Girl from Sweet Reilly, well, I recorded it myself on my new album, and then I said to myself, I'll send it to Margot and see what she thinks. Would she like to do it? And I did, and fair play, she rang me the next night at home, and Margot, and she said, I'll only do it, she said, if you and I do it as a duet, she said, if you think we can do that. And I said, of course. So we did, and I'm very grateful to Margot for doing it with me. It was a nice, a lovely gesture. She didn't have to do it, and it came out, I think, very well indeed.
Indeed it did, yes. It did. Very, very good song. And, well done. The album did very well for you with, in your own right, initially when you took out the album, PJ.
Well, yes, because it's hard, as you know. It's very hard when you write original songs and you write your own material. And it's very hard to get attention for those songs. But I did wrote Georgie's Hall, about our little local dance hall across the field from me, and of course I wrote the Queen of the Galtee, about your colleague Lucia Butler, and made videos, and they were on television. I counted up one time there were on about 7 different TV shows on Sky, and in total about over 80 times the videos were shown. And I was surprised there, not too long ago, a wonderful guy there, sure you know of him, Brandon McPhee in Scotland.
Yes.
He had his own show on Sky, and he played 2 of the videos, and I didn't even know he was going to do it. It was amazing.
Excellent.
So, yes, I was sort of happy, and I wrote another song then for Seamus Moore. I won't forget that one. Though there's not a video for it. There is a slideshow on YouTube, and I wrote this song. Seamus rang me one night, and he said, would you have any old song about the fishing industry, on account of me being a fisherman for the last 50 years at sea, as well as the other activities. But I'm basically a fisherman. That's what I've been all my life, really. That's been my main livelihood. I've owned many, quite substantial fishing boats, and we the 80s, 90s, we did good. But anyways, I didn't have a song, and I just said, in jest, I said to Seamus, give me an hour and I'll write one for you. Bugger off, he said, give me a call in a couple of months if anything turns up. And just like that, the song came into my head. I had 2 phrases in my head all week before that. I had a phrase, Sligo to Alaska. And that's because I was watching, I'm a big fan, of course, of Deadliest Catch on the telly, you see. I was watching that program, actually watching it when Seamus rang me. And that put it into my head. And I also had been thinking about a dear old friend of mine, deceased, a man called JP, who used to work with me. And we used to talk about going to Alaska fishing, you see. Anytime the fishing would be bad here, he'd say to me, we'll do. We'll left off to Alaska. There's plenty of fish in Alaska. And I just sat down at the kitchen table and wrote the song again in 10 minutes, Sligo to Alaska.
Wow.
Now, that's been phenomenally successful for me here, because all the young people, for some reason, around the northwest, especially in Donegal and around Sligo area, sort of got into this song big time, It's unbelievable. I could tell a story.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I thought, but the one brief thing about that song, and I know nobody will believe it, I drove 4 young fellas from here on Good Friday night 2 years ago, forehead the bus, to a party, a beach party in a place in Donegal. I forget the name of the place. Ratsnowla. On Good Friday night, imagine. We arrived above around 3:30 in the morning in a big courtyard where there was about 400 kids, young people, having a disco and a party, for something or other, and a DJ above on a lorry with about 50,000 watts blaring out. And I know nobody will believe this, but it's the truth, I swear. When we pulled in with the taxi, my passenger in the front seat, the big guy, jumped out and he waved to the DJ to stop playing, which he did. And he started roaring and shouting, "This is the guy that wrote the damn song. I told you we'd bring him down here, up here," he said. And I'm shocked. I said, "This cannot happen. This cannot be," you know.
Right.
And with that, the DJ put on Sligo to Alaska. All the young people formed the human chain, went dancing round the taxi and round the courtyard, and they used to come along and jump up in the air and bump their bums off the bonnet. I thought that we're in the bonnet of the car, and them all singing Sligo to Alaska. And for me, that was the high point of my musical career, we call it.
That is amazing.
To see young people that actually knew the song.
Yes.
It sounds like a load of bull, but it all happened, you know. I'm still stunned myself over it.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, well done on that, and well done to be able to write the songs just like that. That is truly incredible, and indeed that song Sligo to Alaska was incredibly popular, and Seamus Moore also had a lot of success with it as well.
I hope so. Yeah, I guess it done all right.
Indeed.
Yeah, he seemed to be happy enough with it.
Indeed. PJ, listen, it's been fascinating chatting to you. Well done on everything you've done, on the performing and the songwriting and everything else. It's been great to catch up with you. Listen, stay safe and stay well, and fingers crossed when we come out the other side of it, we'll meet up somewhere along the winding path.
Well, you wouldn't know. For now the music for me is over, but you never can tell in this game, you know.
Indeed you can.
Maybe you'll make me a big star in London, and I'll go over again.
Indeed. Who knows? PJ, listen, it's been lovely to catch up with you. Thanks a million.
It's been a pleasure, Jerry, and thanks for thinking of me. I appreciate it.